All right, we're back. We are Game 2015 in the winter 2018 semester. We are week 3, part 3 of our broadcast. We're now bringing our textured model from Blender into Unity, right? So virtual reality development is what we're using it for. So like I said earlier, last time we went to our little GitHub file, which is Game2015-W2018-lesson2C. We had a bit of a problem with this that I'm going to fix. I downloaded it and put it on my desktop. Right? I think. Maybe not. Maybe I put it on my downloads. Maybe I'll just do it again. How about that? I think I thought I brought it into my desktop. Okay, I didn't. I lied. I don't know. Or maybe it's, yeah, let's go down here and check it out. All right, I'll do it now with you guys. So I'll go to here, and I'll click under clone or download. I'll click download zip. Now, if I wanted to continue with the commits, I would clone it, right? But right now, what I want to do is I want to download the zip file and start from where I was before. Hopefully, it'll allow me to do that. Sometimes the internet, oh yeah, I love this part. That's never happened. That's from GitHub, right? So that's really weird, right? So hopefully it'll work. And hopefully it didn't kill my connection to the internet. Like that would be very bad if this was down, right? Okay, cool. So there it is. I'm putting it on my desktop. I'm going to save on my desktop. It's going to be about 40 megs, something like that, 40 megabytes, because that's what I put up on GitHub. So when it finishes downloading, about 50 megs, let's say, there it is. I'm going to unzip it. Okay, so here it is on my desktop. Right here. And I'm going to get rid of my zip file. I'm going to change this from what it says here, which is 2C to 3C, because I'm going to put it, I'm going to make a new repository in a second, right? Or later on. Okay, cool. I want to go and use Unity to open it up. So I'm going to go open. I'm going to go to my desktop and go to 3C, and I'm going to open up the package or the Unity project, right? There it is. Now I have a problem. I know I have a problem with my MegaTile. I'm going to fix it. Now, if you guys don't remember, there was the collider was all messed up, which is totally fine. Yeah. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my tiles back into the scene. So we did all the hard work. The hard work was me doing the Blender stuff and the texturing. This is the easier part. Unity also always makes it easier for us to do what we have to do. Now, some people earlier today, when they downloaded the project from GitHub, they had really weird things with their standard assets. Like they had all these errors in the scripts and stuff. Sometimes you need to do that on your own. You need to you may have a different version than I do, and the standard assets may conflict with what you've downloaded. All right, so what we had before, we had a problem, right? When I ran my project, you can see that I run my project, but I'm actually below the floor, which is not cool. And the reason why this is happening was because of my MegaTile, right? So just to make it easier, I'm just going to remove these objects from my MegaTile. So here's my objects. Or actually, what I can do to fix it is my mesh collider. I can reattach my mesh collider because my mesh colliders are all messed up. That's what it is. Not my rigid body. My rigid body is good, but my mesh colliders all have to be reattached. So remove components. And what I want to do is I want to attach a new physics mesh collider component again, which should wrap around. If it doesn't, then I'll have to recreate this whole thing. And to test this, I shouldn't fall through the ground anymore if it worked. It didn't work. So, but the reason why it happened was because when I made my MegaTile, I reset the position of everything to 0, which I don't recommend you do. So let's just get rid of it and just do it again really quickly. So how do I do this? I have my models, and I brought in tile number 3. Let's import tile number 4 as well, just for this this lesson, right? So, or tile number 6. I mean, here's tile number 6. 2 ways to get this. I can import. I can go asset, import asset, or I can drag and drop on some systems. You should be able to do this. If you take tile 6, and if I drag it into Unity, it should create a tile 6 asset. Okay, I want to bring in 3 tile 3s this time, a little differently than what I did earlier in my class. So 3 of these tiles and 1 of these tile 6s. So here's my first one. Here's tile 3. Here's tile 3. And what I want to do is I want to duplicate this. So Shift D across, you know, kind of thing that would be the same thing in Blender. Duplicating would be, I think, the Control D. Control D in Unity, or Command D for the Mac. And again, so Command D for duplicate. So I've got these three objects. I'm going to pull one over here. This first, or this one here, sure, doesn't matter. And I'm using the V key on the corner just to snap it to, and then make sure that these are zeros over here. That's what I did last week. I'm just recanting that. And then I'm going to go to the same thing. I'm going to pull this tile out, rotate the scene a little bit so I can see this stuff in here. Go to the corner, press the V key, and then snap this to as much as possible to. And this looks like it snapped pretty good. So I've got my 3 tiles, but they're all aligned the exact same way. I'm going to just rotate this one by 90 degrees just to make it a little bit more interesting. And rotate this one by 180 degrees. Just to, actually, that creates the block. Let's make it 270. Okay, that's a little better. Makes a dead end, which is good. Okay, and then I want to put my other block in here, my last tile, right? Because I have like 3 tiles that I originally had, plus my last one, which is tile 6. Let's bring that into the scene. And I want to kind of push this out to where it's supposed to go. You see that there's Zed fighting going on. And I also see these colors. Oh man, what the hell's up with the colors, right? Well, we're using them to block out the scene, but Unity doesn't know what Blender I wanted to do with this. I'm going to take the V key, select this little corner, and snap it to. Again, I want to change this so it's exactly accurate as much as possible. So make this a 0. I don't want to make any numbers different. And you can see that there's a bit of a path that's going to go to this one from over here, which is kind of cool. This is okay. I'm going to save the scene this time. Save the scene. And what I want to do is I want to change these colored tiles to the textures that we had, right? But I have a problem. Notice that in the tile 6 that I made, I have these materials, but they're locked, right? So we're going to unlock them later. For now, though, I want to add the things that I need to do to all these things, all these 4 tiles. I'm going to select them all by shift clicking. And I want to remove the animator. I don't care about the animator, so that's going to go. Remove that component. I'm just going to make my Unity screen a little bit smaller so you guys can see everything, right? And what I also want to do, let's see if I can put, no, this is as good as it's going to get. I also want to add a couple physics components. I want to add the rigid body, which I'm going to make not use gravity and use is kinematic. Definitely put that in there, right? And I'm also going to add in a physics effect for my mesh collider, which is what I'm going to use. Now, some people complain the mesh collider is too heavy, but in this example, we only have a few tiles. It's not that crazy, and the performance is pretty good. Okay, so that's 2 things I had to do there, right? Now, I also have to test my player character. So my player is right here, and I'm going to zoom in with the F key, frame select mode. And I'll make sure that it appears above the ground plane, because we don't want it to be, we don't want this thing to kind of appear below the ground plane. Oh, I know what happened. See, I was totally messed up. My camera's all messed up. That's what moved, right? So we can make an adjustment. I'm going to move this camera so it's like kind of aligned with the character a little bit, right? In fact, what I could do is just, do I have a character prefab? I do. And I'm sure I didn't redo this. I'm just going to actually get this, just delete this. That was smart. And then get rid of my MegaTile. I don't need that because that didn't work. And bring in my player prefab again. There it is. And because I didn't save it, I didn't apply my changes, I think we're good. One thing I have to check is my head bob and my FOV kick. That's got to be turned off. Let's see if it works just the way it is. So I'm going to kind of just drop into the scene. That's pretty cool. It's a little hard to work with right now because of my my stereoscopic view. And so what I'm going to do instead of this is I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and I'm going to go down to where it says Player Settings here and change my, I'm just going to remove my XR settings here completely, just so that way I can test. Okay? I'll bring them back in a bit. All right? Are we good? Are you with me? That is weird. That kind of went all wacky on me. Yeah, it did. Now it's back. Woohoo. All right. All right, so here's my player, and if I press play again, you can see now that I'm okay. I kind of appear in the scene. Let's make it so it's not standalone, so that it is a free aspect, and let's also make it so that it is maximized on play, so that I can see my whole screen when I play, right? Like something better than that. There we go. So I'm kind of facing a wall. That's kind of a weird way to look at. So that's one thing I'll change. I don't want to look at a wall. That's where the camera's looking. That means I'm just going to move the player object over here somewhere. All right, so now the player's not looking at a wall. And if I press play, you can see that I'm looking at this dead end. That's fine. Okay, cool. So I've got my dead end, but I need to get my materials done. Then we're done for the day. Okay, because right now we're running a little bit overtime.
Just a quick question before you continue to talk. When you're doing something like this, you have like even if it's procedurally different, you have to have like edge tasks.
I have to, exactly. Or either I'm going to have edge tiles, either I'm going to weight it. I'm going to create an algorithm where I say that there must be an entrance here or whatever. Yeah, some way of connecting it or indicating or marking the fact that this is an opening, right? Okay, so so I've got this thing going on right now. And what I want to do is I want to fix my tile 6. Let's focus on my tile 6 by press frame select mode and zooming back in again. And you can notice that it's all green and red. And the reason for this is because of these about these materials. So I need a couple of folders. Let's add a materials folder and a textures folder. So I'm going to go here and go material folder, materials, and right click and create folder textures. Okay, there's my materials and my textures. And what I want to do in my materials is I want to create 3 new materials. So I'm going to right click and create a new material. I'm going to call this the ground material. And I'm going to change it from a standard shader to standard with specular setup. Okay. I'm going to do the other ones too. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call this the wall material. And I'm going to make it so that it's standard with specular setup. And the last one, I'm going to create a new material. And I'm repeating, but this is what I have to do for you guys to have practice too. This is going to be a roof material. By the way, if you've misnamed it like this, you can just rename it. All right, good. So I've got these 3 materials. Now they don't have any textures associated with them, and I'm going to pull the textures into my Unity from my desktop. Let's do that. It's a little bit of extra work. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to select my textures and my 3 textures and pull them into Unity. No, and that's why I want to tell you. Now, if you use FBX export, it does a totally different thing. If you export FBXs, the problem with it is it also exports the lights and it exports everything else. And I don't care about those things. I only care about the model. So there's different ways of importing. We're going to talk about them throughout the course. But for now, I just want you to do it this way, right? Because guys, you know, we can't talk about everything in 2 hours, right? All right, cool. So now that we've got everything going on here, right? You can see that I've got my textures. And if I look at my tile 6 under the mesh renderer, see the mesh renderer over here? I've got a materials extender right here. Here's my materials tab, which is my properties from my materials. I have a materials array, and I have 3 materials here. I want to get rid of them. So I'm going to click on each of these materials inside the mesh renderer. You have to be clicked on your tile 6 to do this, right? Click one and press the delete button. Click the other one and press the delete button. And what I'm doing now is I'm deleting the materials, okay? Okay, what I want to do is go back to my materials folder. Here's my materials. Click the ground, and then click the textures folder. And I want to just drag and drop my gravel cobble texture into the albedo slot right here, okay? So my gravel cobble texture, or whatever you call the ground texture, into the albedo slot. I'll do the same thing for the other materials. So material number roof, right? I'll go into my textures, grab the roof texture, and grab it into the albedo slot. And then I'll go into my materials for the wall. I'll go into my textures, grab the brick texture, and bring it into the albedo slot. Okay, so now you see a preview of all of them. I'm going to save my scene. I also save my scene a lot in Blender, Unity. Unity, Blender, 3D Studio Max, whatever, save it often, right? Because if you don't save it, then you're done. Now I've got a big kind of, magenta mess over here, right? It's really ugly. Why? There's no material in Unity, and I need to add them back in. So I'm going to go back into my tile 6, and I'm going to guess, if I look at my materials, that my ground is slot 1. So I'm going to put my ground in there. Good guess, right? No, it's because I've done this. This is the third time around, right? I'm going to guess that my wall, let's see if I do this right. My wall is element 2. Nope, I was wrong. My wall is element 1. And my roof is element 2. There we go. And now look at this. Somehow it kind of Blender kept the UV mapping coordinates. That's why I did all that work in Blender. Because regardless of how I do if I drag and drop my objects here, I have the UV maps that I created in Blender that got passed into Unity. And that, my friends, is a beautiful thing. Otherwise, your textures would be all messed up like they were in Blender, right? So that's where I did all the work. That's where that all paid off. Okay, cool. So I've got my object here. And let's do a walkthrough before we go into VR mode. And I think we're almost done. So I'm going to go to... Yeah. So, okay. You guys have 5 more minutes? Yeah. You guys 5 more minutes, I'll show you how to do normal maps. So this is how you do it. So if I was going to go into textures, here's my textures, right? What I can do here in my materials, this is my material. So I've got my ground material, right? Well, I also have a normal map slot in my ground material, right? So if I take my texture and I want to rename it, so my ground material is I'm using my cobble material, right? I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, this is very, very important to do. So I'm going to copy it or duplicate it, Command D, and I'm going to rename it. Usually what I do is add N on the end, indicate normal map, S for specular, right, and so on, right? We're going to do the same thing for the other ones. So Command D, right, or Control D, I think it's for on Windows machines. Make the N happen, right? Same thing with this texture. So Command D. And now I'm adding these other objects here. This is beautiful. You'll see how this is really nice. All right, so I've got all these variations of the same texture, but they're all the same. Now I'm going to click my materials again. I'm going to click my ground material. I'm going to go back to my textures and grab my gravel cobble N and drag it into my normal map. And it's going to say fix now. This is a beautiful thing about Unity. Guess what it's going to do? Convert it to a normal map. Done. Now here's what you don't want to do. It's too gravelly. Turn the normal map way down. Make it like 0.5 or something like that. Because otherwise it's too crazy. It's like even 0.5 might be too much. We have to make some adjustments here. Let's do the same thing for the other one. So I'm going to go to materials. I'm going to go to roof. I'm going to go to textures. I'm going to go to roof normal map texture, pull it into the normal map, change fix now, and change that value into like 0.5, something like that. Not 1. 1 is like 100%. You don't want to use 100% normal map. And the same thing goes with my brick textures. I'm going to go with my materials. I'm going to go with my wall. I'm going to take my textures. I'm going to go into my brick normal map, drag it into the normal map. Fix now converts it into a normal map for me, right? By the way, you can do this for all the maps. And then I want to reduce this right down to 0.5. Notice that it really makes a difference if you actually look at it. It might even be, that may not be too much. That might be too much still. Okay, I'll tell you right now. I may have to make it so that it's 0.2 or something. Save my scene. So now I have normal maps and I have regular textures for everything. By the way, you can do things for same thing with specular, bump map, everything. The whole thing, if you really want to go crazy, because the UV mapping is perfect right now. It's using the UV map coordinates to map your normal map. And Unity is a great way of making a normal map really quickly, like crazy quick. All right, so if I wanted to go back into my game, let's try this out now. And just to, actually, let's escape this for a second. One more time. I want to add some, I want to see if I can add some noise to this because you guys can't hear anything. So let's press F12. There's my, you can hear it now. Let's try it out. All right, so I've got it here. And now we can see that the building is way out here. I can see it from my character, right? So I'm gonna walk around, right? And I walk over to the building. Now take a look at this, man. Look how awesome it is. It looks pretty real, right? I see some really cool shadows. I mean, I see the wall. The wall probably, I'll be honest with you, I think I probably put too much normal map. And there's a lot of specularity. I should probably turn some of this down inside of the material, all right? Too much specularity, like it's really shiny. It almost makes it look like it's plastic. But, I mean, you can see now that I have a little bit on the ground, right? It's not bad. You can turn this up if you think it's not enough. But you can see the difference between this tile and this tile and how the speculars, the shadows and everything works nicely. It makes it look more realistic. Again, we spent 2 hours doing this, right? And or not even, maybe an hour and a half, but you see how much more realistic it is. And for VR, we need to make it as realistic as possible, right? Just like in any first-person perspective game. So we can do that. We can also, if I jump up, you can see that there are areas from the roof that I can see. I can look up at my tower, right, which is what I wanted to accomplish with the tower. I can't really see the peak, right? It's kind of hard. I don't want to fall off the world, too. So if I go over here, I'll fall off the world. So it's pretty cool, right, that I got this tower going on, right? And I've got a bit of my VR experience going where I can, or my first-person experience going, not quite VR yet, where I can see my tower from almost anywhere, right? To give us this, like, you know, perspective look, right? Yeah, I know, it looks like I'm giving somebody the finger, right? All right, so nothing too exciting, but things to note. See this part right here, look at this. What's going on there? Right? So something went wrong there, right? I've got some part of my model that didn't quite, you know, didn't do something. I made a mistake somewhere in my models. Somehow the way they link together, you're going to get that with the way I did the models, right? Because I did this whole extrusion part and whatever. Again, like we talked about with the first class, to do a real map like this, reality, you do a ground plane, you make your houses the way they're going to look, your towers, and you place them on the ground plane fully textured, all right? That's more realistic. We don't have time for that right now. We will make that happen, but I wanted you to get, you know, kind of used to Blender and some of the other stuff that we had going on. All right, let's put our stereoscopic view back. So I'm going to go back to build settings. I'm going to go back to my player settings and go back to XR. I'm going to add in this mock HMD Vive. And I'm just going to get out of this and rerun the project. And we should see the stereoscopic view. And let's take a look at that. You can see that I can see on both sides. That's pretty cool. I'm also going to save the scene and save the project. And I'm going to put it up on GitHub. So I'm going to close Unity down. This is the way you do that. And in my Game 2015 Lesson 3C, which we're going to continue with next week, I'm going to create a new slot up here. So I'm going to go back to, go back to George Brown and make a new slot for this. So I'm really zoomed in here, which is driving me absolutely batty. But it's nothing I can do about it right now. So I'm going to go back into this, make a new thing called GAME2015-W2018-Lesson 3C. And remember how we did the GitHub stuff before? Take care. I'm going to have my command, my terminal, and I'm going to go cd space and drag and drop this thing in here. And I'm going to say git add initialize, right? Git add dot, git commit minus, I'm not going to wait, initial commit. Now, these are all the files. I'm also going to go back to GitHub and grab these last two lines to make it quick and paste and enter. And now it's going to put it up on GitHub. So let's talk about the stuff while this is going. And I appreciate you guys sticking around. Sorry for the lights. So let's do an overview of what we talked about today. So we talked about your project and parts that are due next week, right? So remember, your game pitch presentation is due next week, right? That's the first part. There's the presentation piece, and I know Michael put up a thing saying, "Hey, I need more team members." If your team's fat, like if you wanted to somehow, I don't know why, but some people maybe have made a team of 7. It's not going to happen, by the way. I won't allow it. Please give some players to Michael. Michael needs in his team a few more, maybe at least another 1 or 2. 1 or 2 would be good. That are decent, because this project won't take a lot of effort, but it just everyone has work to do, right? So we talked about the project, the game pitch due next week. We're going to do a kind of a peer review also during lab time next week. So just be aware that's going to come. We also did this Blender texturing stuff in the first video that we did together. We did Blender materials and texturing. And that's really key and critical for us, because we're going to texture other things. We're going to talk about more detail about modeling. And now you know how to texture stuff and bring it into Unity, which is really, really cool, right? We also talked about how to do that, how to not just texture stuff, but how to bring stuff from Blender to Unity and apply the textures and normal maps, right, into the Unity game engine, which is really kind of cool. So again, that's part of the immersion effect we got in VR. So that's the only 3 things we did. You also took some information about Agile this week from Elir. Please don't forget that stuff. There is that component as well that's going to be on your test. Please don't forget about it, because you'll have a midterm that'll include mostly Agile, a little bit of Blender, some of the stuff I talked about, and some Unity, right? Like how to turn VR on. You should know where to go to turn VR on in Unity, right? Otherwise, if you don't know those basic things, I mean, like the stuff we talked about now it's crazy. Any questions before we stop for the day and for the week? Guys, thank you so much for coming today. We'll see you next week. We're going to do more of this stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing your game pitches.